Bon dia. It's a pleasure for me to introduce you Andoni Ibarra. Andoni is a professor of philosophy, a philosopher from the University of the Basque country, which has been involved in cultural developments for a long time already. And we meet in the development of some point social projects where science was bringing to society. And I think at the same time, as you've seen in the calls and the research programs, we are, as a scientist, inquired to develop more social programs, responsible and research innovation, open science, and somehow society wants to, I feel that society wants to participate in the development of technology and knowledge, mainly maybe technology is more applied. At the same time that scientists, we are, I think, shifting paradigms from the ivory tower where you can invent whatever monster you like because you are just inventing and then society will do whatever they want with that, to be responsible of your invention somehow, or your innovation, of your developments. And you have to be responsible because you are part of the society and where you are existing and your offspring, but also because we are using public money. Taxpayer money. And I think that's something very simple. I mean, we are hired by society, so we have to provide feedbacks to society. And then this in the context of nanotechnologies is especially important because of the hype was created at the beginning of nanotechnology in 2000, an exaggerated hype with the books and the science fiction ideas. Nanotechnology was seen as a potential risk from the very beginning, more than other disciplines, genetic modification also, but we were from the beginning forced at least to work on nanosafety, on nanoecotoxicity and the impacts of nanotechnology because we were developing the nanoparticles. And I think we have seen as I have seen nanosafety by design, I didn't knew anything similar like material science by design, physics by design, biology by design, even medicine by design, and it appears in nano. And I think that was important was what are you doing? What is going to happen with what you do? Will be safe. It's not that you develop a technology and then if it's toxic, you stop it, because then it's too late. Then you will do harm. And then it will be removed from society. And you don't want to lose your investment, your years of work and development. So you should not develop something that is going to be toxic or it's going to provoke a social disadvantage or a separation of the how you say increase the difference in wealth of the different people, countries, resources, the economics, and the impacts on the social and lives of people. So somehow I think there is from us we have a need and the will to do things which are useful for society, which did pay our studies and is paying our investigations. And I think society also, they feel like they have to control somehow what we are going, because they are not driving, but they are in the bus and they want to also to discuss where we go all together. And I think this is interesting and how social science or humanities will intermix with technological science. And I think this is going to be like that for the future, for good or for bad. So let's look for the good things and avoid the bad ones. So please welcome Andoni Ibarra, and whenever you want.
So thanks, Victor, for giving me this opportunity to discuss with you about the topic Victor mentioned right now. If I ask you, well, I am presenting a research project in which we are engaged together with applied nanoparticles spin-off with Victor, with Ignasi, with Martí, and with other also groups in this project, which is funded by the Spanish ministry. And as you will see, we will try to answer to the question whether or not science and technology could be managed. So we are not interested in how to reduce, how to control risk, or how to improve our safety in our science and technology or in innovation, for example. But the point is whether or not we can manage, we can modulate science and technology, paying attention to the fact that we are nowadays in a new paradigm of science and technology. We are not in the classic paradigm in which this evolution of science and technology was based on scientific and technological classical standards, but we are in another paradigm in which scientific and technological evolution is related and is based to some new, very new features like risk, uncertainty, ignorance, no knowledge, and so on and so forth. So in this new paradigm, and the prototype of this new paradigm are the so-called NEST, new and emergent science and technology disciplines and areas. How could we manage our modes of production of knowledge? How can we define the objectives of our research? How can we give or produce new images of science and technology adapted to this new reality of science and technology? So for the very beginning, I would like to tell you and to communicate to you that I am not concerned, we are not concerned in this research project with the topics that we were concerned 10 years ago. For example, with the project of how to reduce risk, how to make more safe our scientific technological practices, and so on and so forth. After the proposal of the RRI, the Responsible Research and Innovation proposal, we are changing our idea and our image of science, and also the image of the relationship between science and technology and society. So my question here is, could we manage science and technology? And of course, most of you will answer saying, yes, we can regulate science and technology in order to reduce this risk, in order to make more safe, and so on. And these are the typical problem agenda of regulation and regulatory policies regarding science and technology until now. My question here is not understanding this kind of management of science and technology only reduced to these aspects of science and technology evolution. But my question here is more general. Could we manage science and technology in a general sense? That means, could we define the objectives, the aims, the evolution, the modes of production of science and technology? You see, this is a more complex question than only to refer to these risk safety problems, okay? In the first case, if we reduce the problem to these regulatory aspects of scientific and technological evolution, you could say, yes, in a certain way, we can manage science and technology. Because why? Because we can regulate in a certain sense. But if I ask in these more general terms, all of you are very young people, you will say, no, it's not possible to manage science and technology. Why? Because science and technology is an area in which some kind of spontaneous order is what governs and what controls this area. That means they are the scientists and technologists and technologists who govern this area, which is autonomous with respect or regarding to society. So we know as scientists and technologists how we have to proceed. We have our standards, our genuine and specific criteria, and we know how to do it. But this is not a matter of public policies, a matter of programs or public actions to modulate, to govern, or to drive or to steer this science and technology. This is what I would like to challenge now. The idea that we, and when I say we, I will say the society, societal actors, policy bodies, and so on, can intervene in the evolution of science and technology. I think that we have to make more, we have to politicize more in this sense, science and technology, in order to make a better science and technology in two senses. One, in the sense of making science and technology more socially responsive to societal demands and expectations and so on. But above all, the second reason is why we should change our image of science and the relationship between science and policy, is that if we want to make sustainable our science and technology, we have to change our paradigm. And we have to manage this science and technology evolution. There are studies in which it's shown that we need more and more budget in order to produce the same level of results. And the progression of this increasing of budget is practically exponential. So for achieving a result that was in level 10, for example, in 20 years ago, we need nowadays 20 more times funding for the same result. So if we pay attention to this inherent problem of science and technology, it's clear that we have to understand the evolution of science and technology in another way. So my point here is that we can govern, or we can at least modulate nanotechnology, and I will propose how a methodology, and which is our proposal in our research project, together with Victor and with Ignacio and so on. And this is a new proposal. We can modulate this through this open anticipatory governance. I will try to give you an account of what open anticipatory governance is. And I take here nanotechnology as an example of this nest, okay? But in principle, this nest at the same time could be generalized for all science and technology as well. So it's not only for nanotechnology, but nanotechnology is a very good example of this new paradigm in science to produce a new image of science and how this new science proceeds and so on. But we can, the title could be Modulating Science and Technology through Open Science, okay? So we have modulating nanotechnology through open anticipatory governance. So I will structure my presentation through these 3 points: anticipation, governance, anticipatory governance, and open, okay? So I will elucidate, I will discuss a little bit with you these three concepts of my proposal, open anticipatory governance. And then I will present our operationalization, okay? And then this is very interesting, and invite to you to collaborate in this project, because we need people to work together as actors in this experiment. This is an experiment And we are now launching this, this project. Okay, so first of all, anticipation. Oh. Understanding anticipation. I will spend here some time because usually when we discuss on the first time about anticipation, the naive idea of anticipation is something related to a forecast or to prediction or something like this. But anticipation has nothing to do with that. This is a problem of a terminology problem. But anticipation has nothing to do with forecast, with prediction, and is more related to the concept of foresight, okay, to foresight. And this is the first point. So anticipation has nothing to do with some realizations in the future, but it is, we use through anticipation, the future in order to reflect and to think about the present, how to do in the present, thinking in the future, in future scenarios and so on. So what is anticipation? Anticipation is the analysis of future contingencies, the analysis of their risks, but also the opportunities, okay? Not only risks. In this sense, we are more risky than the defense of precautionary principle and so on. We see that science and technology could have very, very, very good, positive, and right impacts in the future. But these impacts, positive impacts, right impacts, are also related to some risk and so on. But all of you act every day, under these risk conditions, okay? But you you make decisions, and you make positive decisions for you under these risky conditions. So through anticipation, we analyze the risk and opportunities of the new technologies, new science, thinking on the future, okay, building future scenarios, and try to see which are the values, expectations, demands, desires that each of these future scenario incorporates, integrates, okay? This is the idea. For example, what is a future scenario? A future scenario is, we can imagine you are working on nanoseria. Well, we will work in our project on nanoseria area, no? And we can build different scenarios, future scenarios. And in one scenario, for example, and these scenarios are not only scientific, technological scenarios, these scenarios are also socio-political scenarios, economic scenarios. We imagine the society through this nanoseria technology evolution, for example, okay? And in one scenario, we can imagine that, for example, the gender inequality is increasing, for example. Or we can imagine that the economic inequality is increased also in the future with this technology, with the application of this technology, okay? But at the same time, we can identify, or we can construct, build this scenario with other features, like, for example, more social order. So the society will be more stable in this future society, for example. So you see, we can identify different situations with different futures, if you want. And when I say we say, or I say actors, societal actors, actors of society, publics, discuss on these futures. And discussing on these futures, more social order, but more gender inequality, more economic inequality, and so on, discussing on that, we decide reflectively, we decide which course of action we have to take now. Okay, so in which sense we have to work on this technology in order, for example, to what? In order to reduce, for example, this inequality. And we could do that in a sense. Changing, for example, some conditions of our technology and so on, we can improve these economic aspects or this gender aspect and so on. But here, the most important point is that through this anticipatory reflexive exercise, we can discuss among actors on values, expectations, demands, which are very different and sometimes very, very often also contradictory. So we cannot say society wants that, or that is what society is demanding. No, because society doesn't exist. What exists are actors, publics, with very different ideas and values and so on. And why is this important to work on the present through this anticipatory exercise? This is very important, as I will mention right now. We think that the present, not in the classical way, not as a derivation of the past, but through the future. This is a new paradigm to think on, for example, public policies, in the design of public policies, but also in technology, in science evolution, and so on. Okay, and this is important because within the European Commission, we have this strategy foresight network founded 2 years ago. You can identify this in internet, and this is a change of paradigm. So traditionally at the European Commission, they work on the idea of course, of the past plus prospective analysis. But these prospective analysis were typically forecast analysis. Since 2 years, we have this strategic foresight network, which is an interdepartmental network, and which the president of that is a commissioner of the European Commission. I think is the commissioner for science and technology or so, or industry. So it's very, very important person. And they begin at the European Commission, they working on anticipation, so to say. This is important. This is important. So anticipation is thinking the present through the future, not thinking the present through the past, so to say. But as I will tell you, in anticipation, we are not interested in the certainty of its realization, that is the case in a forecast exercises, but in the identification of early futures that may be realized, the possible contingencies. Okay, so if we identify in this future scenario these situations at the present could be interpreted as clues which are interested for us or not, interesting for us or not. And as the last feature, anticipation of science and technology is a very important component of RRI, of responsible research and innovation. Okay, is one of the four, together with inclusiveness, participation, or governance. So this is not anticipatory governance. In our interpretation, is not autonomous from RRI, but it's a very important, the most important part of RRI. Being responsible in research and innovation means reflecting anticipatorily. Okay, Why is important? Because this is the way, the methodology, the view in order to identify which could be the right impacts of science and technology. So we identify these impacts in positive terms and not like in the traditional way in negative terms, risk, hazard, and so on and so forth, dangers, and so on and so forth. So this is important. How identify we the possible and plausible positive impacts, right impacts through anticipation? Through anticipation, we can know which are the desires, the demands, the expectations of publics in society. You see? So, and we are now in Europe in the so-called 9 framework program. This program, the open science program, so to say. But although explicitly this program doesn't mention RRI, in this program there are programs. In this framework program, there are programs and actions related to RRI, and open science could be, in a certain way, interpreted as the continuation of RRI. So although explicitly the framework program is not based on the idea of RRI, but we can identify open action or open science, the idea of mission also. We can interpret that according to RRI principles, okay? So working on anticipation is a way of trying to deep in this RRI idea. That means try to improve and increase the responsible future of research and innovation. So I have discussed this a little bit before. We can understand better anticipation if we compare anticipation with other uses of the future for acting in the present, okay? And you see here, for example, we can compare anticipation with prediction, with a forecast, with vision, or with strategic intelligence, and maybe with other views of the future to work on the present and to act in the present, okay? So here you will have this presentation and you can reflect on that, but I give you these comparisons with prediction, what prediction is, and what anticipation, or what forecast, and what anticipation, and so on and so forth, okay? So, but prediction is not only that prediction is identify something in the future with a predictive certainty, but the point here is what is interesting for us is that in this comparison, we stress the future, this future of anticipation. Anticipation recognizes ambiguity and uncertainty, okay? And if we understand that the future of science and technology, the future of scientific technological evolution is a future which is governed by ambiguity, uncertainty, and so on, you will see that prediction is not the best way in order to think the future for acting in the present. But okay, I think this is enough in order to understand what anticipation is, and not to interpret anticipation with a forecast, with prediction, with the vision in the sense of visionaries. I mean, nanotechnology was at the very beginning a product of vision and of visionaries, and they, for example, they committed only to this vision. We have to work only on that, whereas anticipation is open to multiple futures and possibilities, and not only to this vision idea of technology, for example, okay? So this is more clear. You see this more clear in this comparison between a forecast and the idea of foresight, anticipation, and building of future scenarios. Here is the typical predictive idea of projective analysis, for example. We are here and we have some predictions for the next years. And here we can apply some kind of logarithmic logic, so to say, linked to the idea of causal relationships, okay? If we want to achieve this scenario in 2050, we have to proceed, step by step, thinking logarithmically and so on. But here we don't have that. What we have here is ranges of scenarios, of possible scenarios, ranges. So we have to consider all these ranges. This is the logic here is more a quantum logic, so to say. We don't know exactly where the future will be, so to say. It's like in quantum mechanics, for example. No? So we have to consider not all the possibilities, or not all the options of the future, not all the possible future scenarios, not all the probable future scenarios, but these are our targets, the possible scenarios. That means the possible given the limit, the possible scenarios given the limits of uncertainty. This is important because, as I mentioned before, we accept always in our daily life as well, we accept a level of uncertainty, okay? So the point is not that we want to be absolutely safe or sure in our options, or we accept that and accepted this uncertainty, which could be the possible scenarios we have to discuss, we have to pay attention to. So, but this is important. As I mention all the time, we are in this new paradigm of science and technology, which is governed by the idea of uncertainty, by the idea of risk, by the idea of ignorance, of no knowledge, and so on. So we cannot anymore think and reflect based on the idea of objectivity, knowledge. And so you understand this very well, but it is not the case in our faculties, for example, in philosophy. They don't understand why science is related to climate change and so on, act as they do, for example, because they say, okay, but where are the data? We can't decide on the basis of the data. Well, this is not possible in this nest area of sciences and technologies. And we need to understand in another way, the management of science and technology. They are not these science and technology evolutions related to this idea of objectivity or objective decisions, but to this uncertainty and no knowledge idea. So in this case, what we need is making decisions in a more collaborative way. So if scientists cannot identify which are the variables or the data to make decisions, what we need is to open the door to a governance, in the sense that these decisions have to be made collaboratively, okay, in cooperation between actors who are related to this area. Here, governance is not the governance that it is used by politicians, above all when they say we have to establish a good relationship, a good governance between the Generalitat and the Spanish government, for example. And they speak about, and they mention the term governance. This is not governance. Governance in a more more significant expression is the idea that how making decisions, not only in the classical scenario of making decisions, that means through the governments, parliament, and other institutional politicians or policy bodies, okay? Governance means here that we have to make policies and politics together with society, with actors in society. This is the idea of governance. And according to, I mentioned in the slide before, what we need in this new realm of NEST, science and technology, is some kind of anticipatory governance, okay? Anticipatory governance. We cannot make decisions in this new paradigm of sciences and technologies according to the classical and traditional ways of making decisions, okay? And we need new sets of new tools for these decisions. And the tool I propose to you is this anticipatory governance, which make possible to manage science and technology under this uncertainty and risk futures, to make decisions on that. There are, in the last 20 years, there are a lot of studies on anticipatory governance and also experiments on anticipatory governance, also related to nanotechnology, how to govern nanotechnology in the last 20 years. But all these experiments on anticipatory governance are or could be identified under these two aspects. One is the aspect of trying to use these experiments on anticipatory governance. That means recruiting societal actors and trying to make decisions on the basis of the reflection of these societal actors and so on. The idea of these experiments was to use or to build a methodology for technical assessment. For example, in this Arizona State University model, which was funded by the NSF in United States, and they proposed this so-called real-time technology assessment. So this kind of anticipatory governance experiments were, so to say, very methodological, trying to analyze methodological aspects of this technology and this technology assessment. And the other aspect was, or the other significance or meaning of these experiments were related to this more European idea in the first decade of our century, in the sense that they tried, also promoted by the European Commission, they tried to promote the more democratic integration of nests of nanotechnology in democratic frameworks. Okay, so there were experiments driven directly by the European Commission, or at least funded by the European Commission, that wanted to control in a democratic way nanotechnology and NEST. That means they wanted to make decisions on the evolution of nanotechnology together with the publics. This is, for example, a claim made by one commissioner of the 7 framework program. Nanotechnology is not a scientific technical, but a socio-political project, okay? But the objective, the aim of these experiments were, of course, the acceptation of a European society of nanotechnology and on other NEST. Well, our view in our project, together with Ignacy and Victor and so on, our view is different. It is a third view on these experiments on anticipatory governance. We can call this methodology or this view EPReN. That means engaging publics for responsible nanotechnology. And the most interesting characteristics or feature of this project, of this view, is that this view is not oriented to methodological purposes or to try to make NEST nanotechnology more democratic. But our objective here is how to produce better knowledge. That means more responsible knowledge. Knowledge, scientific or technological, which could be more social in the sense that could be more related to the demands or expectation of society and not to the demands of expectations of scientists and technologists. Okay, how to act, how to proceed in our daily practice in laboratories, also in our researches, in our papers, and so on and so forth. Which could be, or which should be, the evolution, the aims of our scientific technological practices, and how could they be translated into the daily job, the daily activity in labs and so on. So you see, this is a different purpose for our experiment, which is not related to the American, the Arizona, or the European project. And this is important here, if this is the most relevant objective of our view. This is interesting to see how should we understand this anticipatory governance, whether we have to understand this in an open sense or in a closed sense. Because in the literature we have we have a discussion on this, how we should interpret this anticipatory governance. In a closed sense, that means that anticipatory governance, in a certain sense, is limited. Is limited by certain imperatives, the economic imperative, the political imperative, for example. So in this anticipatory governance understanding, we cannot discuss about everything, but only about what somebody or some bodies say that we could discuss, we can reflect on, and so on. Okay, So for example, this is the idea of the close anticipatory governance, which is one of the futures of the mission-oriented research for the 9th framework program, for example. So from the very beginning, we have some political objectives, and all the anticipatory governance idea and understanding are limited by these political and economical objectives of the European Commission. Okay? But there is another idea of anticipatory governance, which is our idea in our project, which is opening up the idea of anticipatory governance to all actors, to all, opening up the opinions, the demands, the expectations, also fascist expectations or very, very, very ridiculous expectations or demands could be and should be accepted for deliberation on this basis of the, you remember, future scenario building. All, not only the political correct ideas, but also the incorrect. Why? Because the objective here is not ethical, it's not moral. The idea here, the objective here is heuristic. Heuristic, that means we want to know, and how we can know better. We can know better if we open the possibility of opinions, the discussions. If we have some incorrect positions, for example, axiological positions regarding women, for example, we have to not to accept, but we have to discuss this, the arguments. Okay, why? Because it's more interesting in order to know how to act in the present, anticipatorily how to act in the present, if we are constrained also to respond, to be responsive to these incorrect opinions, ideas, arguments, and so on. So a close idea of anticipatory governance make the deliberation process more decrease the capacities of the deliberation process, reduces this capacity of the deliberation process. Here, in principle, we have to make possible all the possibilities of discussion because of this heuristic purpose, not because we want to be more democratic than fascist, and that means that we have to act in a different way. We have to accept his idea or her idea and so on. This is not the problem here. So this is the framework of our experiment, and now I will present to you the pragmatic aspects or the experiment in the operationalization of all these ideas in an experiment, okay, which is the most important part, and in which Victor and Ignacio are more interested, and I hope you as well. Okay, so the first idea is that how can we work anticipatorily in science and in nanotechnology, in our daily practices? How can we make more responsible our nanotechnological practices through this anticipatory governance or through this open anticipatory governance? Well, we have, as I mentioned before, we have the previous experiences of operationalization, and practically all of these exercises of these experiments were conducted by sociologists, political scientists, and the like. And this is important. Why? Because of all these social scientists act as social scientists. That means that everything is explained by the social. So the social already exists and explains everything, science and technology as well. You understand? The social here would be the actors, the society, the publics. So they are, so to say, given, and everything is explained by this. The conclusion of that is a kind of relativism, of social relativism, which we don't accept. We work on epistemology and philosophy of science, and we are critical with this social relativism. Our point of depart is not this sociological or social scientist way of seeing the things. Our challenge is try to understand how it works, so to say, the EPReN world, or mini world, or nano world. So how understand the laboratory, or your sets, or your rooms of your working rooms and so on, as a word, okay? Or mini words, if you want. And we have to understand how this word to produce nanotechnology or other nest is built, or should be built from our point of view, okay? Trying to make this word more responsible. And in this word, we understand that the activity of producing knowledge is an activity of building a world which simultaneously, at the same time, co-produces knowledge, but co-constitutes the epistemic subject. That means the actors of this co-production. So the social is not given, doesn't pre-exist, but the social is co-constituted at the same time that the knowledge is co-produced by these actors, by these publics. This is what maybe is difficult to understand for nanotechnologists or nanoscientists, because you say, no, but the actors, I am Jordi Sanchez, and I am working here as Jordi Sanchez, but this is not the Jordi Sanchez, an actor who is recruited, for example, as an actor for our experiment in the Raval or I don't know where. And this Jordi Sanchez intervening in this world is not the Jordi Sanchez who was before coming here and being integrated in this experiment of co-producing nanotechnology and so on, because he will equip it with other futures in order to be competent and in order to be a protagonist of this network of actors. In this way, he is constituted as an actor, as a part of the social. His name is Jordi Sanchez or Mariona Rebull. But she is not the same Mariona Rebull as in the novel, okay? That's the point. So there is this simultaneity in the co-production of knowledge and the co-constitution of this network of actors who were involved in the production of nanotechnology and scientific knowledge. So this is the idea, not giving priority, ontological priority to the social, but equality, ontological equality to the social and to the epistemology or to the epistemic object, okay? The production of knowledge. And our experiment has two phases. So we have to act in a laboratory as you usually do, Victor, or you. I refer to Victor because I know his name, but you act in your laboratory, okay? The point is that in this experiment is to see that we have to act collectively and together with other actors in society in order to know which are the expectations, demands, desires of different publics. So what we have to work or what we have to build is a kind of area, scenario to build this in order to make public possible the discussion, the deliberation among actors. Some of these actors will be scientists, will be Victor or Ignacy or one of you, but others will be representatives of the society or silent voices, because it's not important to be representative, to be a stakeholder. You know what a stakeholder is. It's a person who is interested in the problem. No? We have here two phases in the experiment, the exploratory and operational. The exploratory phase is not interesting because the exploratory phase is the typical part of the sociological experiments on anticipatory governance. So in this phase, and for us is only instrumental, this phase, the objective of this phase is to get information of this EPReN word, okay? Here the EPReN will be, or would be, the nano seria word, okay? The concretization of the EPReN here will be, or could be this nano seria word. And we have in this operational phase to get information of this word. That means of this ecosystem of innovation related to nanoseria. So here, the actors are identified with stakeholders, with the representative of this ecosystem, okay? You as producers, but members of the industry interested in nanoseria, or users, and so on and so forth. And we get information from these people. How? Through surveys, for example, how focus group, how interviews, trying also, this is one part of getting information. And another strategy, for the second strategy, complementary strategy, is to get information about cultural aspects of this ecosystem of nanoseria, okay? For example, which is the culture of participation among these representatives, among these stakeholders, whether or not they know experiences on that, well, which is the perception of these stakeholders towards, for example, science, technology, nanotechnology. But this is the task in the exploratory phase. So we get all this information as an instrument to work on our operational, which is our main aspect, the novelty of the experiment. Once we have we have got all this information, we begin with the operational phase. And the operational phase, I will try to make this clear, is articulated through activities that are aiming at strengthening the relationality between actors. The hypothesis of our project is that the more robust that relationality between actors, the greater the anticipatory capacity of the network of actors. And the anticipatory capacity is not only building future scenarios, but through this building, proceed to what? To a scenario deconstruction. That means which are the values, demands, expectations, which are within this scenario, deliberation, and making decisions. Okay, this is the deconstruction, so to say, of the scenario building. And so the issue at stake here is that we have to increase the anticipatory capacity, because the anticipatory capacity is the most important point in order to identify which are the right impacts of our technology, not the risk, not the hazard, but the right impacts. And this is a methodology in order to identify which are these possible right impacts of our technology and how to improve them. And we improve this anticipatory capacity of actors. That means the anticipatory governance. How? Through improving the relational quality of the network of actors. So the network of actors is above all not a network of actors, but in a stricto sensu is a network of interconnection of actors, of relations among actors. This is a relational concept of the network, not a substantive concept of the network. So the operational phase is not oriented to, in the traditional experiments on anticipatory governance, to a given epistemic subject and try to identify which are the opinions, which are the demands of these actors. But the challenge here is to co-constitute this subject of the knowledge production and to construct this, to constitute this as a network of actors. I repeat it, some of these actors are technologists, nanotechnologists, nanoscientists, other kind of technologists, but also other kind of societal publics, okay? And the point here is that, here is the, I express here the meaning of our understanding, relational understanding of knowledge production. We produce knowledge. How? Improving the relational quality of the actors involved, engaged in this production. So the challenge is how to engage, how to improve that. And learning, we improve this through a learning process. So we understand the process of anticipatory governance as a learning process, okay? As a learning process in which the network of actors learn how to improve the relational quality of the network. The relational quality of the network means that the interconnections between actors will be better in some sense, okay, but better. And this is what is interesting in order to improve the capacity of deliberation among actors as well. And from this deliberation capacity depends, and the decision, of course, and the decision of this deliberation depends the production of knowledge, which is related to this decision, to this deliberation. And for that, we have produced a learning instrument, a learning tool for the learning process. How to improve this relational quality. For that, we propose a learning instrument I will present to you right now. So at the end, what we have here is that these dynamics of this learning dynamics makes it possible to constitute an epistemic subject, that means a network of actors, which is socio-technically robust enough to represent the diversity of societal demands and expectations. So we are interested in representing not as in the operational and the first phase here, the stakeholders of the ecosystem of innovation of Nano-Siberia. We are not interested in that, because if we pay attention only to that, we don't know which are the expectations and demands of society. We have the expectations and demands of society. If we represent the diversity of these demands and expectations on this epistemic subject, on this network of actors, you understand? So in which you have not stakeholders, but actors, which is another concept. These actors are not interested stricto sensu in this technology. Could be, for example, silent voices. I can recruit in Barcelona, I don't know, a woman who came yesterday from India, for example, and I don't know what, but she's interested in being part of the experiment, for example. So she is not a part of this ecosystem of innovation, but she could intervene and she could be engaged in this deliberation process and so on. So the point here is how to learn to be a part of this network of actors, okay? And for that, okay, this is this learning tool, which I cannot explain to you here, but we have that, and you will see how we will apply it in the experiment. So we begin from the very beginning or with network of actors, and it doesn't matter which is the representativity of these actors, which is, or of the network of actors, whether these actors are accurate in this or that future of the experiment. This is not important, because we take the experiment as an experiment and as a process learning, okay? And what we have to do is with this, these are, for example, the dimensions and sub-dimensions, and then we have indicators, but the indicators are not indicators for assessing the production of knowledge, are only criteria in order to be applied in order to make a more robust, socio-technically more robust, the network of actors, okay? So we have here, for example, the institutional conditions, the profile, the content, the dynamics, and the potentiality as dimensions of the learning tool, okay? And they apply, for example, for the profile, we have here size, institutional complexity, spatial complexity, disciplinary complexity, and so forth and so. You see, they are the sub-dimensions that are related to the relational aspects of the network complexity, in the sense that we say spatial complexity means, yeah, which are your relations or the relations of the network with other actors or with other nets or with other institutions, which kind of relations, interconnections they have. We pay attention above all to these relational aspects, because the point of our experiment is to improve this relational quality of the, okay, so this is a bit complex to explain now how it works, this the application of the learning tool. But applying this learning tool, the net of actors will improve his capacity of deliberation. How? Through improving the capacity of being more, being better interconnected. That means in this case, of improving the relational quality of the network of actors. Okay? And this is the last, wow. And the last, the general overview of the learning process. We have here five steps. The first step that we will begin in the next days by identifying, okay, the first phase is, the step is identification of current and potential network. So we have to begin building this network of actors. We have to recruit and to engage some actors. It doesn't matter whether these actors are the most representatives or not. Of course, we have to, we need scientists, technologists, and so on, but we don't pay attention whether we are exhausting the representativity of the ecosystem of nanoseria. In the second step, this network, the first network, problematized the research topics, is aim and objective. So they identify which are the problems they have to address in nanoseria, for example. Okay, remember that you scientists, technologists, nanotechnologists are a part of this. So you have information about which are the problems of nanoseria or within nanoseria and so on. And the building of a first domain of future scenarios. For this problem, we build, or the network of actors will build the first future scenarios. When I say future scenarios, it's not only to build these future scenarios, but to deconstruct, to deliberate, and to make decisions. The third step is identification of issues and the main actors concerned by them. Okay, the issue is a problematization which emerges from the linking between two domains, subdomains of indicators of the tool. Okay, so for example, we can have a certain level of institutional complexity, for example, and we have in the potentiality domain, we have, for example, we have identified some possibilities. Okay, if we link both the institutional complexity, that means that, for example, we only have, imagine, we only have, or in this network of actors, they are only actors who come from the public area of nanoseria, for example. Okay, and the potentiality is that they are areas of this ecosystem who are related or who are private, for example, and so on. So if we link both, we have an issue. That means a problem. We have a challenge that we have to address. Okay, identification of issues and the main actors concerned by them. Once we have identified this kind of issues, we can decide who could the actors that we can invite to be engaged in this network of actors. You see, so and this way we are improving our making more complex our net of actors, recruitment of actors, then new future scenarios with the incorporation of these actors, demands, values, expectation of these new actors, mobilization of concerns and priority, thereby questioning the limits of that not analyzed and of certainties. That means that this incorporation creates new areas of uncertainties and or make these all certainties uncertain, or Yeah. And the fifth step is considering all that as a recursive process. The learning process allows understanding its dynamics as open, recursive, and participatory. Okay, so this is the general strategy or dynamics of the learning process, and this is the conclusion. Open anticipatory governance, a tool for science and technology modulation. As I told at the beginning, this is not a proposal only concerned for nanotechnology. I propose to understand anticipatory governance as a learning process in which co-production of knowledge and co-constitution of the epistemic subject of this network of actors are simultaneous. This way we construct a more socio-technical, robust knowledge through the relational co-constitution of the network of actors. We understand anticipatory governance process as a learning process of a relational capacity. The anticipatory governance is improved by improving the relational quality of the network of actors. And this way we can learn to produce capacities and conditions for the creation of new relations and resources in this nanoseria production of knowledge. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Everything is much more clear now. I think we would enjoy a little bit of discussion on the subject. I don't know if in any question in the room by now, Ramon.
I think that it's very interesting that you present like the figure of scientist as this core relationship with all the other actors, and it's more like instead of a figure that exists independently of society, it's kind of a social scientist, and everything is interconnected. And I think that that is very interesting. But I have kind of objections about how possible is to achieve that status without, like, I don't think that it's maybe even possible to like completely re-understand and apply that figure without also looking at how the economics that make science possible work. I think that that is the central figure of the whole thing. Yeah, because I think that the scientist right now, as it understands also itself, it's completely, instead of this societal construct that the scientist is that person who is like building knowledge completely apart from economics, that exists in some really privileged places that have like the privilege of doing that kind of science. But as I think that as long as the science is so it's so limited by the economical aspect and how the actors that are managing that economy are also constructed, it's very hard to break those relationships and understand the scientist as that social actor that can act upon the present, looking at the future and what are the problems, and solving the problems, even if the solution of those problems is not good for the economy, is able to really construct itself. That is my main objection to the talk, but which I think it was very interesting, and I agree with that. It's really necessary to challenge the construct of scientists like this kind of figure on the ivory tower, and it's completely necessary to understand it as a societal actor. Yeah, that's my.
Thank you, Ramon. Yeah, you address a very, 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 very important question. But I would say this is one of the aspects of the complexity of the experiment and of the understanding of our new paradigm. So we are not trying to make theoretical proposal, but an experiment. I mentioned at least 4 or 5 times experiment. So we have to go to the cavern, as Socrates said. We have to live in our real life and not theoretically. So this is why it's important, this operationalization, because we have to see really which are the limits, which are the problems caused by this economic and interest and demands and expectations. But this area is a part of society. And they engage publics who have these interests. And these interests are so acceptable as your interest or as an ecologist's interest, or you see what I mean? This is a part of society as well. And we have to try to recruit also actors coming from this area and with these demands, and of course they have a very contradictory expectations with respect to other publics. But this is the point of the deliberation process. We have to discuss among actors on these very different and contradictory interests, values, and so on and so forth. And I'm not saying that it is very easy to align all these values and expectations. Is not. I'm not saying that in the end we will have a happy end or so. No. But what I am saying is that what we get is more information to modulate science and technology. We get more information for this, or for you as well, for you to modulate, to see, because the objective of that is not to achieve some kind of unanimity. No. The main objective is to achieve more knowledge, in this case, regarding the demands and expectations and values of social actors or publics, different publics. But I agree with you. I agree with you. This is a problem, and we have to manage with that.
As I'm working with Ramon, I would like also to intervene here. I'm scared, and it's a total failure what you said, and is because I think that's very sad what you said, the submission, the subordination to getting the grant and doing whatever, because at the end you need a salary to pay the bills, and that's all. For me, until now, science was this societal thing where you play the scientist and you get your grants and you explain whatever silly thing you have to explain to the funder to be happy, and you do graphene or artificial intelligence or gold nanoparticles or whatever. When you follow the trends and you do nuclear fusion with all those things, but always that was the price to access knowledge, to explore nature, to be a real scientist. And that was your social contract, that you play something with society, and society give you the tools, not just to satisfy these societal funding schemes only, but to give you the tools to develop real knowledge that will be uptaken by society or not. That's another thing. But that at the end, this social contract that I do something for you that I wouldn't do it, but I do it because I get something back from you, it was much more than a salary. It was much more than a project. It was to observe nature, was even access to an electron microscope to see how electrons fall down into a piece of matter. And that was the deal, the social contract, the scientist social contract for that. But if you lose what you take and you only give, then yeah, you became a clerk. A different, you became someone which is doing whatever. I mean, you could be managing Coca-Cola distribution in the coast, like ionisable lipids in delivery of drugs. I don't know. That's it's not. Sorry, I don't know if I'm diverging, but also I think this position of you to that was like, then we have nothing to do.
No, like I agree with what you say.
Please.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, no, I agree with what you say. These are like the rules of the game that we have so far, and then sometimes you can access that knowledge for that project that you asked, blah blah blah, and then you can go somewhere else altogether and also contribute and also like play with nature and discover other new things. And it's always exciting the first times that you go to an electron microscope, but you're thinking that, oh, so now the electrons are being, and there's also all that personal part. But yeah, I was just mentioning that so far the rules of the game that we have these limitations that he said. He presented like a scenario in which I completely subscribe. Well, with the open thing, I have also my but that's another thing. But yeah, I completely subscribe to the re-understanding of the scientist figure. But I was just stating out that the rules are, in my opinion, very limited for what we have right now to achieve that paradigm. Yeah.
Sorry, can I ask? Can I ask why are you skeptical with my openness?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Although I can imagine, but
well, I think that you said just I can sum it up. You said that actually it's good to have like this completely freedom of knowing, not to be more democratic and to play the more I'm more liberal or I'm more democratic, but to have like this open space in which you can actually really talk and discuss, and that would allegedly be better for the knowledge, but that like could also, I think, could take up energy and resources and time discussing things that maybe shouldn't be discussed at this time of civilization and history. Yeah, so I think it can create, in my opinion, that illusion of the more open and the more freedom, it's always going to be better, but it can produce confusing results. Yeah, there's always a problem of fascism.
Okay. A priori, my point is that the deliberation is an open, or should be an open process, okay? A priori. But according to the process of deliberation, the network of actors is autonomous to make decisions. And they can decide, for example, not to discuss these arguments or these values of this actor and so on. So they can make this kind of decisions. But the openness here is an a priori condition, and not the closeness. Okay, but the traditional and the mainstream is the closeness. So we have to accept only voices or only arguments, or discuss or deliberate only politically correct arguments and so on. No, why? If you have a political interest, if you have economic interest, if you have, of course, then you have to exclude some kind of arguments. But if our interest and our aim is to produce better knowledge, in principle, we have to accept everything, in principle, as a network of actors. But the network of actors could say one day before or one day later, sorry, we don't accept this kind of arguments because these are not at stake here. Okay?
This autonomy is important.
Yeah. Well, this autonomy, but this autonomy is the autonomy of the word, of this mini word, okay? It's not the autonomy of some publics with respect to other publics, because we have to be inclusive in this, inclusive, but the inclusiveness is related to this demands expectation, not to the representation of actors understood as stakeholders, which is another conception. This is another view. Our network is a network of actors, not a network of stakeholders.
Just 3 quick comments. One is one that interested me a lot, that is, it's much more clear today that what I have seen from your project, that all what has been discussed in the last year between us. And I think that makes a lot related with being you talking in English. And that for me is very interesting. The fact that you have to synthesize and clarify a lot. When you speak in Spanish or in Catalan, you use a lot of philosophical words that you are lost in. Yeah, it's a kind of lost in translation. And now
translation.
Yeah, for me that it's an interesting situation. It's just a personal comment. Second one, I think it's very interesting that scientists understand and knows what is the playing field. So the constraints that you have, the social constraints, are extremely interesting to be aware of, just because then you will know better how to move in that field. Because for instance, the idea of that the scientist is living in Marfield Tower, for me, it's a kind of a stupid comment, because that is really what they want you to believe, that you are free from doing whatever you want. You are not free at all. So being conscious that you are not free, it's the only way in which you can start being free. Just an example, for me, it's clear that you are in a research group that starts safety by design before anyone talk about safety by design. And that makes that you, or in this case, your IPs were able to understand what was the playing field and understand what they want to do, or what they want and what they could do in that field. So they start working in nanotechnology before they told, or before we told that nanotechnology, and they are developing safety by design before anyone talk about safety by design. So I think that you, if you are aware of the constraints, you need to be aware of the constraints, but you are allowed to know what are the exit routes in which you can play. That for me, it's also interesting, this reflective point of responsible research and innovation, to know where you are living and how you can move there. That for me is interesting. And specifically about the operationalization of the project, I realized that needs a lot of team building work between different actors for producing knowledge. That requires a lot of money, a lot of time, and a lot of voluntary people. I have that feeling that if you really want to create a network, there is a lot of beers to be drink. You know that there is this kind of interrelationship that you want to create in order to create knowledge needs a lot of time and, unfortunately, a lot of money, I think, no, and a lot of willingness to participate. Probably we have the willingness, but people that are above stakeholders, I'm not sure that they have any interest in coming here. I don't know how many meetings are you planning? 10, 15, 100?
No.
Or not meeting, but this kind of how
yeah, like workshops or
or whatever.
No, not more than 4 or 5. No. I agree with you that the this kind of experiment needs a lot of willingness, a lot of efforts, also a lot of will, but not a lot of money. Really, not a lot of money. Of course, you have to prepare a room for discussion. We have to prepare some beers. We have to, but that's all. You don't have to invite people coming from Scandinavia or no. That's all. First point. Second point. As you know, this experiment is conducted in Germany as well. Here at Aachen University, I was there 1 year until December, and we were together with the EPReN. EPReN is the Institut für Werkstoff in Elektrotechnik. In English, this is interesting because they work in nanotechnology. Institute für Materials in Electrical Engineering, okay? And unbelievable. They were fascinated, and people, your peers there were involved at the very beginning. Of course, they weren't involved as you or in the operational team, so to say, but they were involved, and they were involved also people coming from other areas, from ecology, from students, nanotechnologists. Also, we have one Japanese that was working in this only 1 year ago, and he contacted with us through online and so on. So, and we also engage an institution of the city of Aachen called EPReN Lab. EPReN is the altmodische, so the old expression for citizen of Aachen, EPReN Lab, something like the Media Lab in Madrid. I don't know the name here, Mediacat, or but they were also interested in the project. So we don't need thousands of people. This is a pilot experiment, but the most important thing is the concept of experiment, pilot experiment, and a small experiment. But we have to experiment which kind of limitations, which kind of limits are these economic limits, how they work, how they affect these processes of anticipatory governance. We cannot understand that only theoretically, and we cannot understand these kind of limits and so on only if we work as in other governance, anticipatory governance experiments, interested only in methodological aspects of the experiment, or only trying to make more democratic. That is to say, try to make more these dynamics according to the policy on the political interest of the European Commission and so on. You see, so what we need, this is a big challenge, but I have to say we are doing this here and now in Barcelona, and not tomorrow. Tomorrow I'm going to Valencia, but in Valencia I will have a similar meeting on tomorrow is Wednesday. What is it? On Thursday, and in Ingenio, for example, and they are interested. I am supervising a thesis, a doctoral thesis, a PhD thesis in Nova de Lisboa on that, and the PhD student Sofia Romero also made a little experiment. So we have, and in my country, for example, in the Basque country, for the first time, they are nanotechnologists who are interested on this kind of ideas, this kind, for the first time in their life. So,
for instance, how many meetings you had in nanoplastics in Germany?
3 meetings, but we had some difficulties. I will explain you why.
I think it's also very interesting, just I mentioned that regarding the how expensive or is not in order to do it. We cannot forget that today we live not only in an offline world, but also in an online world. I'm not saying that we have to base everything on that, but those are free resources sometimes that you can use in order to promote that knowledge. I'm not talking about only doing that recruitment of actors online.
No, but makes the life a lot easier for volunteers.
Exactly. It's a tool that you can use or not.
Okay, we are.
The team, she's waiting for.
Yeah, it's
but
very interesting, but the two
we can begin only with 8 people, 90 people,
Uh-huh.
not more. So
I mean, we are running out of time. A short intervention. You were also wanted just and after you after.
Very quickly. So you are talking continuously with two different kind of concepts. One is to get knowledge, no?
You need the microphone, otherwise you are not registered.
Okay, my question is, okay, thank you. It's very nice to see this kind of effort, and I was just wondering, as a philosopher, of your point of view of the Donner-Kruger effect. You know how we as scientists are very aware that we know very little about the future, and how other actors may think that they know more, and how this will be compensated in the process, because as a scientist, it can be very difficult to say, okay, I think this is the way, because we are so aware of all the uncertainties, while people with a lot of money who are wearing the wallets, you can say, often have very little information, so they think they know more. How how will that affect this whole process? I think it would be interesting to hear your point of view. Yeah.
Well, the basis of this anticipatory governance is well, you have different methodologies to link the future to the present. Okay, I propose to you only one, which is this future scenario. And the future scenarios are buildings are built as scenarios that you imagine. Imagine, so not because they you predict with certainty that they have to be like this. So this is why it's very important science fiction here, or other kinds of artistic, for example, expressions. Because the point is not, as I mentioned before, the point is not that these kind of futures are to be realistic or are to be politically correct or have to be, no. So they have to be absolutely possible, or as I mentioned here, plausible. And that's the point, the plausibility, because plausibility is linked to the idea of uncertainty. But this concept of uncertainty is a meta-uncertain concept, so to say. This is not a certain concept. So as you mentioned now, each actor has his or her own concept of uncertainty. So you also have to discuss, or the idea of we are working now in a paper on the concept of time, for example, regarding to the future, and how the time is used in the prevalent concepts of future in this future scenario building and so on. So from the beginning, a priori, I cannot answer to your question, because the point here is to identify procedures, mechanisms, how to construct this future, how to construct deliberation, and try to go beyond the limits, the limitations. So in order to make a close deliberation, try to identify which could be the potential limits for this deliberation to be more open, for example. And the same for uncertainty. The point is not the naive, could be the naive idea of reducing uncertainty. No, why? Why? Maybe for them, it's more important to open up the idea of uncertainty and so on, and because the last objective is to produce better science, better technology. And for that, we need a lot of hints, a lot of information, a lot of not only technological, scientific, but regarding social aspects. So this production is a socio-technical production of science and technology. And we forget very often that. And we need a lot of information, a lot of pieces of inputs on this socio-technical, in this social.
And just a final.
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for the talk. It has been really interesting to see for a while another perspective. I like it very much. I have one comment, or maybe something that I did not understand. I did not catch properly the idea. But the point is to do to develop knowledge from experiments. So from one experiment, and involving people with from different backgrounds, and without knowledge, a previous knowledge on the field. So you want to do knowledge.
Sorry, a previous knowledge, no, because some of the actors have a lot of knowledge.
I'm sorry,
are technicians. And,
some of them without previous knowledge on the field. So my point is that you are putting at the same level the concept of opinion and the concept of knowledge, so of people that has been working, has been studying, it has a critical opinion on the field. And the other point is that you are talking about experiment, but I'm wondering how reproducible is this experiment? If you want to create a knowledge, if you want to extract a conclusion, the experiment, it has to be reproducible. Do you expect that doing exactly the same with 2, 3, or 4 different groups of people, you will obtain exactly the same?
Okay, my concept of experiment here is a genuine concept of experiment. It's not reproducible. No, to begin with the second question, we pay attention here to the contingent aspect of this experiment. These experiments are not reproducible. These experiments are absolutely contingent and unique, but we learn inductively. If we make an experiment, if we conduct an experiment here, and another one in Germany, and another one in Valencia, and another one, little by little, we get information inductively, not in the sense of we are reproducing.
You need to create a hypothesis, and the hypothesis, it's not that you inductively take some experiments and then extract some conclusions. I mean, what I have, this is the hypothesis, but can it be falsibly or falsified?
In the experiment? This is a fallibilistic claim. This is a fallibilistic claim. The more robust than that relationality, the greater the anticipatory capacity. If some experiment show that this is false, that is not true, that the more robust than the relationality, then the anticipatory capacity will increase. This is but I am not a Popperian, and I am an anti-Popperian, okay? But in any case, if you are Popperian,
got it?
No.
You got it?
No. I translate into Spanish, for example, pseudo-rationalismus de falsificación, which is the form of Otto Neurath, which is written in 1935, review of Logik der Forschung by Popper. And this is the absolute, the last critique to the falsationism of Popper. in 1935, and Logik der Forschung, the book was published 1 year later or before. But
the message, so I don't understand the point. The point, well, we can discuss it.
well,
later on,
we
but
discuss that. But this is
I'm sorry.
this is a hypothesis which is a Popperian will accept.
And,
will accept absolutely. And the other question. So the point is to learn inductively, to learn from one experiment, another experiment. Each experiment is contingent and unique, but we can learn from these experiences. We can learn from these experiences. The point is that we have to reproduce them as experiments, not as the same experiment, but as experiments in order to compare, in order to see the differences and so on. And for your first question, this is one of the keys, and this is why it's important to have in the operative team, together with David, people that, at least one person that really knows, and they, Ignacy and Victor know, we need a person who will able to produce information for the actors regarding nanoseria, results, evolution, what are you doing in your lab, and so on. Because the point you address is true. So you have this epistemic injustice. You have people who know a lot about the nanoseria and another who will, but these people will be informed by the operative team. One of the tasks of the operative team is to try to reduce this epistemic injustice and try to make more,
Good. Now we finish the session here. We thank you, Andoni, again, and all the people which is here and online. And I'm sure this conversation is going to keep up for a couple of hours more, but offline. Thank you very much. And thank you, Andoni.
Well, thank you.